What's up, guys? Welcome back to another video. UFC 324 has just gotten way more intense in the build-up. Obviously, we saw some questionable comments made around this fight about the legitimacy of this title, this interim title, as it's, two guys who are not necessarily in the top three in their division. Definitely not the best lightweights on the planet, but this fight has been made even more intense due to two different things. The first one we're going to talk about today is possible staph infection from Justin Gaethje, okay? We've seen in the build-up, we've seen pictures of Justin Gaethje with scarring on his neck and on his lip. This has been, we'll throw up an image here. This has been debunked by Justin Gaethje as just being an ingrown hair, but I've seen a lot of people who grapple, a lot of people who do this sport say, yeah, that looks like staph infection. Staph infection for Justin Gaethje means that he might have to stop training for a bit, take antibiotics, and come into this fight even more drained than he already would be from being such an old fighter cutting down to 155. So it's very possible we see not a 100% Justin Gaethje that everyone thinks is coming into this fight. And then number two, the second thing, and arguably the bigger thing, is we have some drama coming out of Paddy Pimblett. Paddy Pimblett went on an interview with MMA Guru and made some comments about fellow fighter Dan Hooker, who they were seemingly close friends before this interview. And we'll play the clip here.
He's 2 years older than Dan Hooker.
That's true.
Dan Hooker can't fucking... Dan Hooker couldn't grapple a fucking pissed off his ma.
But as we can see, you can't say that. You can't say that. You just don't mention someone who does those sort of things, especially in the context with another person or another fighter's family member. And this is made even worse because even later in that interview, we see Paddy Pimblett mention that he respects Ilya and he would never bring up family in the build-up to a fight or in an argument.
But, know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't ever want anyone to mention anything about my family, so I'd never do it about anyone else. It's not what we do. We're fighters. We say what we want about each other. Say anything about me, I'll say anything about him.
And this is just obviously not true, as he did this earlier in this interview, and we see that. So this is crazy because Paddy is really only making this title fight, only really getting this title fight because of his likability and because his allure with the fans. And if he does not have that, then we are just, if you remove the name, remove the image, you're looking at a guy with one top 10 win getting to fight for a title. And obviously there's the beef with Dan Hooker. If he loses this title fight, you could say, oh, maybe he gets someone to go fight with Dan. The UFC doesn't like to make matchups like this. They don't like to, they're not going to say, oh, we're going to reward Paddy Pimblett with this fight because he said something kind of fucked up. We've seen guys try and bait their way into fights before, like, Joaquin Buckley has been trying to get fights with Ian Gary with Shavkat by trash talking, by doing all this, and it's not quite working. So I don't think the UFC makes that matchup. So if Paddy Pimblett doesn't win this interim title fight, what's left for him? What does he have? Because he'll have a loss to the number 5 opponent if he loses to Justin Gaethje. He'll have one win over, I think it was number 7 or 9 ranked Michael Chandler, which is a fine win, but it's not a win where we're going to look at that and go, okay, Paddy, now you get the winner or loser of Charles versus Max. You're not getting the winner of Benoit Dan Hooker. It's like you're having a tune-up fight. You're having to prove yourself again. And I don't think Paddy's going to have judges' favor or fan favor after things he said in the build-up of this fight. And I don't know. I think Paddy Pimblett is digging himself a hole that he really doesn't want to be in. And we haven't even talked about the second half of this beef by Dan Hooker, okay? Now, this was the crazy part. On Twitter, we see Dan Hooker say, obviously he mentioned him thinking that him and Paddy were cool. They've hung out backstage. Dan Hooker takes it up a level and says, nah, it's on Ricky now. It's on Ricky. How's Ricky? And for those of you who don't know, Ricky a, was a friend of Paddy Pimblett who unfortunately took his own life. And what we saw in that post-fight speech, the men need to start talking. Forget the accent, but Paddy Pimblett talked for suicide awareness and talked against suicide in young men. And now Dan Hooker's just brought that up. So, as much as I don't think the UFC wants to make this matchup because of this, they might have to. Because these are some of the cheapest, lowest, most vile trash talk moments I've seen. Yeah, there are guys who talked more trash, but bringing up some dude's mom being sexually assaulted and saying he's such a shitty wrestler that he couldn't stop it, and then in response, having that guy bring up your dead friend, this is one of the craziest build-ups to any sort of fight we've ever seen. And the thing is that between Gaethje and Paddy Pimblett, there's been pretty much radio silence. There's been no trash talk. There was the seasonal press conference, and we got the gay cheese line by Justin Gaethje. Oh, he's gonna call me gay cheese, But other than that, there's been like nothing but like pretty much mutual respect between these two. Start talking, guys. We have better fights lined up for y'all next than what we have right now. So y'all need to lock in and start talking, start building this fight instead of building your next fight. But yeah, that's just the tip of the iceberg with UFC 324. And yeah, the insane situation by Paddy Pimblett and Dan Hooker. And I just wanted to cover that in the build up since we don't have any fights for 2 more weeks. So yeah, I just wanted to talk about that today. Might put out one more thing tomorrow. UFC fighters with the most to lose at UFC 324. Let me know if y'all would want to see that. And if you made it this far, please, like, subscribe, leave a comment on your take on this situation or any developments that you've seen that I may have missed. But yeah, I think that'll be it for this video. So I'll see y'all next time.